She texted, "I told your new boss you got fired from your last job for stealing. I'd left for a better opportunity. They'd given me a going-away party." I replied, "Interesting strategy." Then I forwarded my former CEO's recommendation letter to my new boss with her text attached. When HR called her for a defamation lawsuit discussion, I, 33 male, work in logistics operations. Specifically, I manage warehouse distribution systems for mid-sized companies. Routing, inventory flow, vendor coordination, that kind of thing. Not glamorous, not trendy, but it's the kind of job where if you're good at it, you're really valuable and you know it. I'm good at it. I spent 6 years in my previous company. Started as a floor coordinator, worked up to operations manager. When I left 3 months ago, I was overseeing a team of 22 people and managing about $4.8 million in annual distribution contracts. I didn't leave because anything was wrong. I left because a competitor offered me a senior operations director role at $118,000, a $31,000 raise over what I was making. Better title, bigger team, equity options after 2 years. It was a no-brainer. My old company was great about it. My boss, the VP of operations, shook my hand and said, "I'd do the same thing." The CEO, a guy who'd founded the company in the 90s, wrote me a personal recommendation letter. Not a form letter. A 2-page, specific, detailed letter about my performance, my reliability, and the systems I'd built during my tenure. He printed it on company letterhead, signed it, and gave it to me in a frame at my going-away party. Yeah, they threw me a going-away party. Cake, a card signed by everyone, a $200 gift card to a steakhouse. The whole deal. I left that company on the best terms possible. This matters because of what comes next. My ex-girlfriend and I broke up about 4 months ago, roughly a month before I took the new job. We'd been together for 2 years. The breakup was my decision, and it wasn't complicated. She had a pattern of controlling behavior that escalated slowly enough that I didn't see it clearly until I was deep in it. It started small, checking my phone when I was in the shower, getting upset when I went to happy hour with coworkers without inviting her, asking why a female colleague commented on my LinkedIn post. Then it got bigger. She wanted access to my work calendar so she could know where you are. She started showing up at my office unannounced with lunch, sweet on the surface, surveillance underneath. She'd interrogate me about any work trip that involved a mixed-gender team. The final straw was when she called my direct report, a woman who'd worked under me for 2 years, and told her to stop texting my boyfriend after hours. The texts were about shift coverage. At 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, my direct report came to me the next day mortified and asked if she needed to start communicating only through email. That's when I knew this wasn't fixable. I broke up with my ex clearly and directly. Told her the relationship wasn't working, that her behavior was controlling, and that I was done. She didn't take it well. Cried, yelled, accused me of cheating. I wasn't. Said I was throwing away 2 years for nothing. I stayed calm, moved my stuff out over a weekend, and went no contact. She tried to contact me a few times after. Long texts, voicemail swinging between, "I miss you," and "you'll regret this," but I didn't engage. I figured time would do its thing, and she'd move on. She didn't move on. About 3 weeks into my new job, I was in a meeting with my new boss, the COO of the company, a sharp woman who'd built the operations division from scratch. Good meeting, productive. I was feeling solid about the transition. After the meeting, she asked me to stay behind. Her, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." Me, of course. Her, "I received a phone call this morning from someone claiming to be a former colleague of yours. She said you were terminated from your previous position for misappropriating company funds. Specifically, she said you were stealing from inventory, and they let you go quietly to avoid a scandal." My vision tunneled. That's the only way to describe it. The room got very small and very bright, and I could hear my own heartbeat. Me, "That's completely false." Her, "I need more than that." Me, "You'll have it within the hour." I went back to my office, closed the door, and sat down. My hands were steady, but my jaw was clenched so hard my teeth ached. I knew exactly who'd made that call. I knew. Not because I'm paranoid, but because there is exactly one person on this planet who would do something like that, and she'd already demonstrated a pattern of inserting herself into my professional life. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my ex. The text that, in hindsight, was the dumbest thing she'd ever done. I told your new boss you got fired from your last job for stealing, smiling face with smiling eyes, good luck with that. She sent an emoji, a smiley face emoji, after attempting to destroy my career with a fabricated accusation. The absolute audacity of that smiley face will haunt me forever. I stared at that text for maybe 15 seconds. Then I typed back 3 words, interesting strategy. Nothing else, because in that moment, I realized something important. She had just handed me everything I needed. Here's what I did in the next 45 minutes. First, I screenshot the text, backed it up to my email, my cloud drive, and sent it to my personal account. Redundancy is a habit from logistics. I always have backup copies. Second, I went to my files and pulled out the framed recommendation letter from my former CEO. I'd brought it to my new office because it was genuinely one of the proudest things I owned. 2 pages, company letterhead, specific performance details, signed and dated. I photographed every page in high resolution. Third, I composed an email to my new boss. I kept it professional and factual. The email contained the photos of the CEO's recommendation letter, a screenshot of my ex's text admitting she'd made the call, a brief explanation that the caller was a former romantic partner engaging in harassment, and an offer to arrange a direct phone call between my new boss and my former CEO to verify my employment history. I sent the email. Then I walked to her office. I sent you an email with documentation. The short version. The person who called you is my ex-girlfriend. I broke up with her 4 months ago. She has a pattern of interfering with my professional life. I was not fired. I left voluntarily for this position. My former CEO wrote me a personal recommendation letter, which I've included. I can also provide HR contact information from my former company to verify my employment record. My boss read the email while I stood there. She looked at the recommendation letter. She looked at the text screenshot. She set her glasses on the desk. She sent you an emoji. Yes, ma'am. After calling my direct line to accuse you of theft. Yes, ma'am. And she thought texting you about it was a good idea. Apparently. She shook her head slowly, the way you shake your head when you witness something impressively stupid. I'm going to verify your employment history through official channels, because that's standard protocol. But I'll tell you right now, the letter from your CEO and that text message tell me everything I need to know. I'm also going to forward this to our legal department. Legal? Someone contacted this company and made a false statement about one of our employees that could have resulted in your termination. That's not a personal matter. That's a business liability. Our legal team will want to assess whether we pursue action. I hadn't even considered that angle. I've been thinking about this as a personal problem. My boss was thinking about it as a corporate one. And she was right. I went back to my office and sat there for a long time. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted and angry and also weirdly sad because the person who'd done this was someone I'd once made breakfast for on Sunday mornings. Grief and fury can apparently share the same chair. More happened. A lot more. I'll update if people want it. Update 1, 7 days later. Comments on the original post were something else. A lot of people told me to get a lawyer. Way ahead of you. But let me back up a few days first. Day 2 after the email to my boss. My former company's HR department confirmed my employment record. Voluntary resignation, no disciplinary actions, no investigations, no issues of any kind. My former boss, the VP of operations, also took a call from my new company's HR director and apparently said, I'm paraphrasing what was relayed to me, he left on excellent terms. We tried a counteroffer. Whoever told you otherwise is lying. My new boss called me into her office again after the verification came through. Your record is spotless. I verified everything. I want you to know this hasn't affected your standing here at all. I appreciate that. I also want you to know that our legal counsel has reviewed the situation. Making a knowingly false statement to an employer about an employee's professional history, specifically a fabricated accusation of theft, potentially constitutes defamation per se in our state. That means it's the kind of statement that's considered so inherently damaging that the person who made it doesn't get to argue, well, no one believed it as a defense. Me. What does that mean practically? Her. It means our legal team has drafted a preservation letter. We've documented the call, date, time, what was said, the phone number it came from. If you personally decide to pursue legal action, we'll cooperate fully. And the company is independently considering whether to send a cease and desist on its own behalf, since the call was made to a company officer and wasted corporate resources. So now there were two potential legal tracks, mine personally and the company's. I hadn't asked for the company's involvement. They decided on their own that someone lying to their COO about an employee warranted a response. That's what happens when you try to mess with someone's career. You don't just poke the person. You poke the organization backing them. That afternoon, I called a lawyer, an employment and defamation attorney recommended by a college buddy who works in corporate law. Free consultation. I explained everything, showed him the text screenshot, the recommendation letter, the HR verification documents. He got quiet for a moment, then said, "She texted you a confession, in writing, with an emoji. I've been doing this for 16 years, and I've never seen someone hand-deliver the evidence this cleanly." He explained my options. A cease and desist letter was the minimum, a formal demand that she stop making false statements about me, with a warning that further action would follow. Beyond that, I could file an actual defamation lawsuit. In my state, defamation per se, which includes false accusations of criminal conduct like theft, doesn't require me to prove financial damages. The statement itself is considered so damaging that the law presumes harm. However, and this is the realistic part, he was upfront about costs. Filing a lawsuit would run me $5,000 to $10,000 minimum, potentially more if it went to trial. He recommended starting with the cease and desist, then escalating only if she continued. I agreed. The cease and desist was sent 3 days later. Certified mail to her home address. Now, while the legal stuff was processing, my ex was not sitting quietly. Because of course she wasn't. Day 4, she created a fake email address and sent an email to what she thought was my company's general info address. The email said, and I'm not kidding, that a concerned former coworker wanted to report that I had a history of inappropriate behavior with female employees and that my previous company had hushed it up. Two problems with this. First, the email address she found was for a completely different company with a similar name. So a random business got a bizarre email about someone they'd never heard of. Second, my ex apparently realized her mistake within a few hours and sent a second email to the correct company address with the same content. Our IT department flagged it. They forwarded it to HR. HR forwarded it to legal. Legal compared the email's writing style, the specific details mentioned, and the timing with the phone call from 2 weeks earlier. They also traced the email, not through any complicated hacking, just through the metadata in the email header that showed the sending IP address, which matched an ISP associated with her home area. My attorney received a call from my company's legal counsel, informing him of the second contact attempt. He added it to the file. Day 5, the cease and desist arrived at her door. I know this because she immediately violated it. She texted me from a new number. I'd blocked her main one, and the message was, "You're suing me? Are you serious right now? I tell the truth about what a garbage person you are, and you threaten me with lawyers?" I screenshot it, forwarded it to my attorney. Did not respond to her. Then her sister called me. Her older sister, a woman I'd met maybe 5 times at family dinners. Apparently the type who gets involved in everything. Her sister. Okay, what the hell is going on? My sister just called me sobbing because she got some legal letter from a lawyer. Me. Your sister called my employer and told them I was fired for stealing. That's a lie. My employer is now involved. I have a lawyer. That's the situation. Her sister. She was just venting. She was upset about the breakup. You don't have to get lawyers involved. Me. Venting is telling your friend your ex is a jerk. Calling someone's new employer and fabricating criminal accusations is defamation. Those are different things. Her sister, she didn't fabricate anything. She heard from someone that you were. Me. Heard from who? I left voluntarily. They threw me a going-away party. The CEO wrote me a recommendation letter. Who exactly told her I was fired for stealing? Silence. Long silence. Her sister. She's going through a hard time. Me. She called my boss. She emailed my company from a fake address. She made up a story that I stole from my employer and another story that I was inappropriate with female coworkers. These are career-ending accusations. And she did it because I broke up with her. I'm not going to pretend that's okay just because she's having a hard time. Her sister. What do you want? An apology? Me? I want her to stop. That's what the cease and desist says. Stop contacting me. Stop contacting my employer. Stop making false statements. If she can do those three things, the legal situation stays where it is. If she can't, it escalates. That's not a threat. That's just how this works. She hung up. Probably went straight back to my ex to report the conversation. I forwarded a summary to my attorney and moved on with my day. Day 6. Silence. Beautiful, golden silence. For about 18 hours. Then my ex's mother sent me a Facebook message. Yeah, her mother. A woman I'd had Thanksgiving dinner with twice. The message said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. My daughter loved you, and this is how you repay her? With lawyers and threats? You broke her heart, and now you want to break her bank account too? Real men don't sue women. Drop this immediately, or our family will take action." Our family will take action. What action? I don't know. She didn't specify, but the vague threat was noted, screenshot, and forwarded to my attorney, who responded with, "They're making this very easy for us." I didn't respond to the mother. I didn't respond to the sister. I didn't respond to my ex. I just kept building the file. More in the final update, because the legal resolution is where this gets good. Update 2, final, 19 days later. All right, this is the last one. Buckle up, because the ending is satisfying in the way that only paperwork and consequences can be. After the mother's Facebook message, things went quiet for about a week. I found out later this was because my ex had actually consulted a lawyer. Not proactively. Her sister apparently forced her to after reading the cease and desist. And her lawyer apparently told her, in no uncertain terms, to stop contacting me, stop contacting my employer, and stop talking about the situation to anyone. I know this because of what happened on day 14. My attorney received a call from her attorney. Her lawyer was professional, measured, and clearly trying to clean up a mess. The conversation, as relayed to me, went roughly like this. Her attorney: "My client acknowledges that she made phone and email contact with your client's employer. She maintains that she believed the information she shared was accurate." My attorney: "She texted my client a message explicitly stating she told his boss he was fired for stealing. The text included a smiley face emoji. She wasn't sharing a belief. She was announcing a deliberate act of sabotage. We also have a second contact attempt via a fabricated email alias making additional false accusations. And her family members have since contacted my client with veiled threats." Her attorney: "I understand. What is your client seeking?" My attorney: "At minimum, a formal written retraction sent to my client's employer acknowledging that the statements made were false. A written commitment to cease all contact with my client, his employer, and his professional contacts. And reimbursement of my client's legal fees to date." Her attorney said he'd discuss it with his client and get back to us. He called back 2 days later. And this is where my ex's entitlement showed up one last time, even through her own lawyer. Her attorney: "My client is willing to sign a no-contact agreement. She's willing to reimburse legal fees. She is not willing to send a written retraction to your client's employer because she feels it would be too humiliating." My attorney relayed this to me. I thought about it for exactly 4 seconds. Me? No deal. My attorney called hers back. "The retraction is non-negotiable. Your client contacted a COO and accused my client of criminal conduct. The company has independently documented the incident and is considering its own action. A retraction letter protects your client from further corporate escalation more than it hurts her pride. That reframe, pointing out the retraction would actually help her, is why you hire a good attorney. It's not about winning arguments. It's about making the other side realize that what you're offering is the best-case scenario they're going to get." Day 17. Her attorney agreed to all terms. Here's what the final agreement looked like. 1. a signed, written retraction letter addressed to my company's COO and HR department. The letter stated that the phone call and email contained false information, that my ex had no factual basis for the claim she made, and that she retracted the statements in full. It was formal, it was specific, and it went into my employer's file as a permanent record that the accusation was fabricated and formally recanted. 2. A legally binding no-contact order. Not a court-issued restraining order, a civil agreement. She agreed not to contact me, my employer, any of my professional contacts, or any future employer directly or through third parties. Violation of the agreement would trigger an automatic $10,000 penalty clause. My attorney insisted on that number, and hers didn't push back, which tells me her lawyer understood how bad her position was. 3. Reimbursement of my legal fees. My attorney's bill at that point was $3,400. She paid it. Took about 3 weeks, but the check cleared. 4. And this is the part that I think mattered most in practical terms. My company's legal department received the retraction letter, reviewed it, and closed their internal file. My company had been genuinely considering sending their own cease and desist or even pursuing a tortious interference claim, which is a fancy legal way of saying you lied to us about our employee and wasted our time and resources on purpose. The retraction letter satisfied them enough to drop it. If my ex had refused a retraction, she would have been dealing with a corporate legal team in addition to my personal attorney. And corporate legal teams don't settle for $3,400. They settle for whatever makes this go away, and whatever can get very expensive very fast. My boss called me in after receiving the retraction letter. She had it printed out on her desk. I want you to know this is in your employee file as a positive note, not a negative one. The way you handled this, calmly, professionally, with documentation, tells me exactly the kind of person we hired. Most people would have panicked or gotten emotional or tried to handle it off the books. You treated it like an operations problem, identified the issue, gathered data, implemented a solution. That's exactly why you're in this role. I won't lie. That might be the best professional compliment I've ever received. She essentially told me that the worst thing my ex could have done turned into a demonstration of my competence. That's not how my ex planned this going. Now let me tell you what happened in my ex's world, because I did find out some things through the grapevine. Not through stalking or investigating, through mutual acquaintances who volunteered information, because people love to talk. The retraction letter, signing a document that says, I lied about someone to their employer, is not something that just goes away. Her attorney presumably told her it was confidential between the parties, and technically, the agreement itself is. But the substance of it, that she called an employer and made false accusations, was already known by her sister, her mother, at least one of her friends, and through them, a wider social circle. Because her family had contacted me and discussed the situation openly, the story was already out before the retraction was signed. Her sister, the same one who'd call me to argue, apparently told several people that my ex had to sign some legal thing admitting she lied. Not exactly accurate to the legal nuance, but close enough to do damage. The stories circulated through their friend group the way stories do, quickly and with embellishment at every retelling. One of my ex's close friends, a woman who'd actually been at the last dinner party we'd attended as a couple, unfriended my ex on social media. I know this because this friend sent me a message saying, I heard what she did. I'm disgusted. I'm sorry you went through that. I always thought something was off with how she talked about you. That message wasn't satisfying. It was just sad, because it confirmed that my ex had been painting a negative picture of me to people for a long time, and it took a legal document for anyone to question it. The $3,400 in legal fees hit her at a bad time. Through the grapevine, I heard she'd recently put a deposit on a new apartment, upgrading to a nicer place, because that's the kind of financial decision you make when you think actions don't have consequences. The legal bill apparently forced her to ask her parents for help covering the gap. Her father, a man I'd met once and who seemed reasonable, reportedly asked why she needed $3,400 for a lawyer, and when she explained, he was not supportive. The exact words relayed to me were, he told her she made her own bed and he wasn't paying for the sheets. I didn't orchestrate any of that. I didn't tell her friends. I didn't tell her father. The information traveled because she'd involved her family in the situation directly. Her sister called me, her mother messaged me. And once you bring people into a conflict, those people talk to other people, and the story develops a life of its own. All I did was respond to a false accusation with documentation and let the legal process do its job. Here's where I want to be real. The whole thing cost me, too. Not financially. I got the $3,400 back. But emotionally, the 2 weeks between the phone call to my boss and the signed retraction letter were some of the most stressful of my life. I didn't sleep well. I second-guessed everything. I had a recurring anxiety dream where I showed up to work and my badge didn't work and security escorted me out. That's what false accusations do. They make you feel guilty of something you didn't do. The feeling fades, but it doesn't disappear entirely. There are still moments where I'm in a meeting with my boss and a tiny part of my brain whispers, does she still wonder? Even though I know she doesn't. I also lost the ability to look back on my previous relationship and find anything good in it. Every memory, the dinners, the trips, the Sunday mornings, is now filtered through the knowledge that this person was capable of trying to destroy my livelihood out of spite. I can't remember her birthday party without wondering if she was already tracking my phone. I can't remember our anniversary dinner without thinking about the time she called my direct report. The good memories didn't survive what she did. They got retroactively contaminated. Last thing, my ex hasn't contacted me since the agreement was signed. The no-contact clause with the $10,000 penalty seems to have been persuasive. Through mutual acquaintances, I've heard she tells people the breakup was mutual and that the legal stuff was a misunderstanding. She's not telling people she called my employer and accused me of theft. She's not telling people she sent a follow-up email from a fake address. She's not telling people about the retraction letter. She's editing the story the same way she edited our relationship, removing the parts that make her look bad and presenting a version that makes her comfortable. But the documents exist. The retraction is on file with my employer. The text screenshots are backed up in 3 locations. The attorney's file is archived. The truth doesn't need her to acknowledge it. It just needs to be recorded somewhere permanent. And it is. I'm 3 months into my new job. I got my first quarterly review last week. Exceeds expectations across the board. My boss specifically noted my composure under pressure. I'll take that. My team is solid. The work is challenging in the way I like: complex systems, tight timelines, real consequences if you get it wrong. I'm good at this. I was always good at this. No phone call from a bitter ex was ever going to change that. But for a few terrible days, I wasn't sure. That uncertainty, that brief window where I didn't know if my career was going to survive someone else's lie. That's the part one won't forgive. Not the lie itself. The doubt it planted in me. That's what defamation actually costs. Not money. Confidence. I'm getting it back. Day by day. The file is closed. The job is secure. And somewhere in my ex's apartment is a canceled check for $3,400 that represents the exact price of learning that actions have consequences. Thanks for reading. Document everything. Trust your gut. And for the love of all that is holy, do not text confessions with smiley face emojis.